Hey, so today we are here, Jen and I, to talk about understanding your emotional wave. Now, if you're not sure what your emotional wave is, it's actually a part of a human design. So if you know your human design, you're able to look at your chart and you're able to discover if you are sacral, if you are emotional in your authority, which is your decision-making process, right? And so there's many different types of decision-making in human design, but we're talking about the emotional wave today. And the reason that Jen and I are talking about that today is because we both have an emotional wave, and because we run a program called Planning by Design, it's so important for you to understand that if you do have this emotional wave, how you bring that in to syncing your cycles so that you can work smarter, not harder, which is what Jen and I are all about. So, yay, Jen's here to join me to talk about this. And I'm really excited because Jen really has a lot of experience around this emotional wave. She has a master class that she sells to give you more information about this. Obviously, she does many readings. So there's a lot of ways for us to understand the human design and why we want to track our emotional wave, because there's actually a lot of different types of emotional wave in human design. And then when you also take into account, as women, our emotional wave, our period cycle, the moon cycle, it's really important. And of course, the transits in human design, it's really important for us to understand like how we can leverage those creative peaks or those sort of creative lows as well.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, there's like so much to this wave, but like to keep it simple is that anyone with an emotional authority, it's a defined solar plexus. That triangle on the right side of your human design body graph is colored in. That means that you have an emotional authority. And really, you're here to feel the high highs and the low lows. Half of the world has this. So it's kind of crazy that it's not yet supported in society, that we need to feel through things and honor when we're really high and really low. And then that changes, and that we're really not meant to make decisions in the moment because we got to move through our wave.
Yes. And to be honest, Jen, this is one of the hardest things for me when I was first starting a business. Okay. And I like to talk about this from a business perspective, because as somebody who, started an online business, worked really hard to make it work and pushed a lot of boundaries in myself, and constantly felt like I was really pushing like a wet, slippery rock up a really muddy, slow hill. When I found out about my human design and then understood my emotional authority, everything started to make a little bit more sense about why everything was so hard, because I was really making decisions out of alignment. And so that's where Jen and I are here to really talk about this emotional wave, because I'm a manifesting generator. I want to go really fast. I want to skip steps. And I have to understand that, yes, that is a part of my energy. And at the same time, when I'm making these sort of bigger decisions around investing in a program or investing in a coach or making a pivot in my business, that I do need to actually honor those high highs and those low lows around my decision making process when I step into something that maybe is really going to challenge or increase my expansion, especially if there's a high stake investment involved.
Yeah. And one thing that I like to speak to with this is for non-sacrals, right? All projectors, manifestors, reflectors. The worst thing we can do is go with our gut, to listen to that gut hit, because it's not unreliable for us. And especially if you're an emotional authority, you can't give an answer in the moment anyway, especially for these big things. So not so much like the small decision making questions like what are you going to have for dinner? Right? You're not going to wait 24 hours to answer that. Maybe you do try going with your gut and, seeing if you end up liking dinner or not. But it's just not consistent energy, where our emotional wave, we are going to move along. So to honor that, and what I talk with most of my clients about is how to detach from the emotions. We become so attached to what we feel that our feelings equal the truth. And in the moment, yes, but they're going to shift and change, especially if you are half the world with the emotional authority. So this is all like extremely important information to know about yourself so that you can live authentically, so that you can live in alignment. And especially as the world is going to be massively changing in these next 2 to 3 years, like you're going to be called to do this work anyway. So now's a great time to start.
Never too late, right? And I think with the emotional wave is that as someone, especially for women, I think too, we've always been taught, to not really share our emotions, to hide them, kind of push them under the carpet. And so oftentimes we can feel unjustified, unsupported, or not seen and not heard with that. And so by understanding when we are in these sort of emotional highs versus an emotional low, understanding that it is, a short-lived period, especially if we're in a low, right? That we can push through it, that there's, light on the other side of the tunnel, all of those sorts of things that we tell ourselves, but actually understanding that and knowing that. And as someone who now tracks my emotional wave, I'm not perfect, but I do try to track it so I can understand it better. I find that, because there's certain cycles too, right? So there's certain cycles that I'm looking in my head of like, oh, I'm in my period cycle right now. I'm supposed to be selling, or I'm supposed to be really have high energy or be active or outgoing. And I'm not feeling that, right? I'm not feeling that. And instead of sort of being judgmental around myself, I can be like, oh, well, I wonder why that is. Is this my emotional wave coming through? And maybe like what emotional wave is coming through? Is there, a part of my system in my human design, like a gate that I can tune into a specific channel that's kind of bringing this up? Is there some worthiness coming in here? Is there sort of some bigger emotions from the past coming in here? Is this some shame and guilt coming in? Like, what is it? And be able to move through it with so much more ease and grace. Whereas in the past, I would just find frustration, right? Which, as a manifesting generator, that is my not self theme. And so, obviously understanding our emotional wave, but also understanding when we can move, how to move through that not self theme as well, that comes from not following our emotional wave.
Yeah, so I've been giving this example a lot recently that I woke up one morning and I was bitter AF. I was like, I don't want to do anything. I hate the world, hate everything else about it. And I paused and I checked in and I was like, wait, why am I feeling this? Like, I just woke up. Like, nothing has impacted my day. I certainly don't want to start my day like this. So I checked in. Where am I on my wave? And I was like, oh, clearly I am at the very bottom. I am feeling a low, low. So I reminded myself to detach from that and trust that I'm going to move along my wave. What do I need now to allow myself to rest, allow myself to just kind of let go of those emotions, to, focus on something else, trusting that in a little while I will move out of my wave. So I think I ended up laying in bed for like an extra half an hour because I had the luxury to do so. And I did other things to distract myself. And after that half an hour, I was like, okay, I'm out of the depths of the bottom. Not feeling great. Like I'm still slowly working my way up. My specific wave is I think a little more challenging, the tribal wave. But I was able to get up and start my day and go about my day. And in a couple more hours, I was great. I was moving through it. So it's really when we try to force ourselves to feel differently, right? Had I been in bed that morning being like, no, I need to be positive. I need to be on a high. Like I just would have pushed against it and I would have felt more bitter and other not great things would have happened. So when we really can let go, detach, and just trust that we're going to move along our wave, we do with ease. So this is something so important with working smarter, not harder, because if you're forcing yourself to do things that you have to do in the low of your wave and you're feeling in your not self theme, that frustration, bitterness, anger, disappointment, it's only going to be harder. Whereas you just kind of sit back, trust that you're going to move along on your wave and wait for that shift, then you can get those things done. And that really is working smarter, not harder.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to your business, like we can all agree that when you're feeling that emotional low, like people can tell. People can sense it. They can sense it if you try to go live or in your stories, and especially if you're trying to fake something, like you're trying to be all happy-go-lucky, right? If it's one thing if you're getting on and talking about like I'm in this like terrible mood right now, and this is why, and da da da, then that's great. That's your authenticity, right? And that's perfect. But when you try to force something and it doesn't feel authentic in the moment because you're in this sort of low, emotional low, people can sense it, and it doesn't sort of create that authenticity in your brand, in what you're creating and what you're selling in the online space, or even just in life. Like if you're like me and when you have, young children or a family and I'm on my emotional wave, well, that emotional wave affects the rest of my household as well. And so learning how to like navigate through that is even so important because it kind of can set the tone for the whole day. And if any moms out there can relate to this, where like the first 5 seconds of the morning can be total bliss when you're snuggling with your two kids in bed, and then all of a sudden they start, punching and hitting each other, and you're like, what is going on right now? Like, was this me? Is this them? And so, like, understanding for them too how to work through this and best support them even in their own emotional waves. I have all my family is emotional authority, so we are very big on the emotions, which is wonderful when we know how to work through that and understand it and appreciate it.
Yeah, and I talk about these interpersonal energy dynamics in the second half of my emotional masterclass. So if you're
Mm.
interested, definitely grab that. I believe the link is in my bio. Nope, it is not. Message me, DM me, and I will get you that link. Um, because, yeah, it's beautiful when a bunch of emotional authorities are together because everybody's in their wave, right? They're just riding along. It's when we're with others who amplify our wave, they receive it and things go crazy. Um, so it's really important to just, again, honor your wave. Know that you are on this wave that's going to shift and change because the magic that comes with the emotional authority is really about having innate emotional wisdom. Like we are already pre kind of programmed to have a high emotional IQ, right? That EQ. But society tells us, don't talk about feelings. Nope, you are not feeling anything. Deny your emotions. Don't bring them into your decision making. Only use your mind. That is all completely incorrect. Um, so, the more that you can become aware of your inner emotions, just notice them, let them go, right? Just like meditation, when you watch those thoughts on clouds and shift, same thing with emotions, because your body is sending you messages through your emotions to guide you on what to do. So that's why it's so important as we ride our emotional wave is to notice so that we can gain clarity, all of this wisdom that our feelings are giving us. So yeah, there's a lot to it.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say there's a lot of people who just joined us, and I wanted to mention that, we're talking right now about your human design chart and if you have emotional authority or not. And it's so important to know this because as women, as business owners, as um, just trying to show up and live our best lives, is understanding how we can best make decisions for ourselves, for our families, for our businesses by knowing this, right? And so a lot of people will, you'll see a lot of posts online that say, follow your gut, follow your gut. But for people who don't have that defined sacral, that's such terrible advice, right? So for Jen, that's like a definite no. I do have that defined sacral, but I also have a defined solar plexus, and my solar plexus is really what governs my decision making in the moment at any given time. And I have to really wait, which is hard. And so when we can really understand that and get the guidance, the proper guidance to do it correctly, then we can come back into alignment. And so what we were saying before is that if you're feeling that not self theme of frustration, bitterness, anger, disappointment, that's really telling you that you're probably in some way out of alignment, whether it's in your life, in your business, or how you're showing up in the world. And by understanding these parts of your human design, you get to just release so much of that and come back into being your most authentic and powerful self, which is what Jen and I teach in Planning by Design. We talk all about working smarter, not harder, by understanding these energetic cycles and understanding that there's a hierarchy within them as well. And so we talk a lot about our period cycles, our energy cycles, so our energy type in human design, whether you have emotional authority or not. We talk about the moon phases. We talk about the human design transit. Like there's lots of different things that we put into this because it's not just one thing that rules us. And Jen's hierarchy of energy is different to mine. And so it's so interesting that we've been figuring this out as we've been moving through this ourselves, that, oh, it's not necessarily my period that actually rules my life. So, for example, right now I'm in this stage of where I should be in my selling, like high energy, really like stoked and get out there and be in front of everybody. And I'm not feeling it because my emotional wave is in a different spot. And so knowing that means I can now choose not to force. I can choose not to go against the grain of my actual energy and instead show up in places where I actually need to, or work through things that are being presented to me so that I can get through that emotional wave and come out on the other side even stronger.
Yeah, so having this awareness of your different energy cycles that we guide and support you through in Planning by Design helps you in your business, but also personally, like in your personal life, so that you can stop feeling
100%.
like there's something wrong with you or you're broken, because you are absolutely not. It really helps support you and guide you into working smarter, not harder with your energy.
Yeah,
So
1000%.
I would love to give emotional authorities some tips. So if you are an emotional authority, let me see if I can name 3 tips. So the first one is to really practice giving people an answer in the moment to wait, right? If someone's like, do you want to do this really big thing? I need an answer now. So the more that you can practice saying like, that's really interesting. I would love to think about that, but can I get back to you? Or, the next time I see you, I'll let you know, right? We can use the term, let me feel through it. Let me think about it. So really practice those go-to responses, because as an emotional authority, you are not meant to give a big answer in the moment, especially when it comes to relationships, business, moving where you live, those really big, impactful decisions. You definitely need to wait for clarity, which for me in the past sometimes like is literally months. So just honor your own time frame. And then the second tip is definitely to sleep on it, right? Give yourself at least 24 hours. The question I get a lot is, how long does it take to move through my wave? It really all depends. It depends on your specific energy. It depends on your specific wave. It depends on what's happening that might be triggering it. But it's safe to say, kind of 24 hours, you'll move through a high and a low and come back to where you started. So allowing yourself to feel through, checking in throughout this 24 hours on, how do you feel? Is it a yes? Is it a no? So that brings me to the third tip, which is that for emotional authorities, typically a yes will only feel like 60 to 80%. It's pretty rare that we are like 100%, oh my gosh, yes, I'm ready for that. So, what I like to do is think of it like a scale, a seesaw, something like that. So, with a lot of decisions, I'm 50-50, and I recognize that. And I'm like, I could go either way, right? I am indecisive, I am apathetic. That is totally part of my emotional wave. So, I keep checking in until the wave tips, because when it is still, I'm sorry, when the scale tips, because when it is still a 50-50, it is a no. It is not a good use of my energy. My authority is not giving me a yes. But when it does tip, right, when it is to that 60%, it's like, oh, I I could do that. I think that would be fun. I think that would be a good idea. I am a 60% yes. That is when I say, okay, yeah, let's do it. And typically it ends in my signature theme for me, success. So you may feel satisfied, you may feel peaceful, you may feel delighted and surprised with it. So, yeah, really kind of get to know what your 60 to 80% yes is, and also honor and allow that 50-50 is a no. Do you have
That
any
is a
do you have any tips that you would have, Ms. Rawl?
No, I love your tips, and I feel that number two was big for me because I was somebody who would always just decide in the moment and then be like, "Oh, why did I say yes to that? Like, I really don't want to do that, or vice versa, right? Why did I say no when I really actually now wish I had said yes?" So I definitely, and then giving yourself space to say that and grace, because I think so much of it, other people can say yes in the moment. And so they expect that from you, but without knowing that you have a different way of deciding. But when you're confidently say, "Oh, I love this idea. This is great. I just need, let me sleep on it and see where I come back to." People are happy to give you that time and space, but you have to be able to honor yourself in that first and foremost, right? I think that's really good. And then I also think that your tip here with it might only feel like 60 to 80% is a really good one, because I think a lot of times people are waiting for that like hell yes in order to actually say yes. And they could be missed opportunities based on the fact that, well, it is a hell yes, but I'm just not like, I'm 10% not there, or I'm 20% not there. Well, maybe that is the yes for you still and always will be. And so knowing that about yourself, I think is really, really helpful. And your tips are so great. I don't think I would add much to it because a lot of it is just the practice
Yes.
of waiting, right? The practice of understanding and learning. And then the other part is just like realizing when you have that not self theme come up for you, anger, bitterness, dissatisfaction, or frustration, being like, what did I do yesterday or 2 days ago or earlier this morning? What did I say yes to that should have been a no? Or what did I say no to that should have been a yes? Because that will give you clarity immediately and where maybe you're going wrong in your emotional authority. And so I think that was a really big one for me. And just understanding, yeah, when is it a hell yes, right? And being okay with sleeping on it.
Yeah, and I think one huge piece to honoring our emotional authority is, in a way of working smarter, not harder, is sparing yourself the regrets, right? I think any emotional authority can relate to giving an answer in the moment and then being like, shoot, like that's not my answer, right? When we get away from that, when we come back to our own energy, or when we shift back onto the other side of our wave, we're just like a complete opposite. And then sometimes we have to backtrack, or the negative self-beliefs come up.
Mhm.
So work smarter, not harder, to practice this so that that can happen less and less and less.
The only way to do it. Practice, practice, practice.
Right. And Planning by Design is great support. We have the Telegram group so that you can, drop these insights in, drop your questions in, hear from the other women in this community of what they're going through, what they're experiencing. I'm trying to think. I wonder if half of our group is an emotional authority. I think it may be a little less, but most of the women in there do have an emotional authority. So it's pretty cool to see those percentages play out in real life.
Totally, exactly. And then just to give people a quick view, it's hard to see what we have here, but this is like an example of something where you're looking at syncing your cycles. We have so much information in here on how to really support you in managing your cycles, right? So that one in particular was about your monthly cycle flow, so your period and what to do during each time period, which is amazing. Like I said earlier, that sometimes I'm in that stage, but I have to still honor my emotional wave. And so understanding the two. And then we also have one for the moon as well, which kind of tells you what to be doing during the moon phases as well, and sort of what is the most productive thing for you during that time. And Jen and I are so proud of this because it's helping us, and it's helping everybody who has joined Planning by Design and really understanding how to honor all of this within themselves, their lives, their businesses, their families. And so it's so cool because the impact is so much bigger than just our business.
Yeah. And for only $11 a month. Like, it's kind
Right.
of crazy the value that you get in this membership. We will be doubling the price very soon. So if you're thinking about it, definitely you will be locked into this $11 a month. We have our first call for October tomorrow, where we will be looking at the month ahead. We will be goal setting. We have everybody state their intention, their goal for the month. Mistral and I are there to support everyone in questions or guiding through setting that goal. So if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not good at setting goals, come into planning by design because you definitely need this. And we were really coming up with weekly calls for everyone, whether you can join or not. They're always Tuesdays at noon Eastern time, but the value that is within this membership is crazy. It's wild.
And it's growing. So that's
Yes.
what's important is we're adding more and more all the time. So lock yourself in at that $11 a month before and still get all the value as we grow, which is the biggest part.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, thanks, Jen, for joining me today. I so appreciate you. And just remember to drop below if you want that emotional masterclass that Jen has, such good value for a very low price for you to just kind of dip your toes in. And then, of course, planning by design. We're here to support you in that. And you can message either Jen or myself about that. And we look forward to serving you and talking to you again next Monday. We go live every Monday at 1:30 Eastern Standard Time to talk about different parts of our energetic cycles to support you in stepping into your power and being your most authentic self.